My name is Liam, and this story is about how I discovered the truth about my wife Amelia after 8 years of marriage. I worked as a head mechanic at Premier Auto Services in Chicago, while Amelia worked as a senior accountant at Harrison and Associates. We seemed to have everything: a beautiful house in Oak Park, 2 cars, and what I thought was a solid marriage. Everything changed on that crisp October Friday when I returned home earlier than usual. Our main hydraulic lift had broken down, and my boss Carter sent everyone home early. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed something odd. Amelia's silver Honda was there, but so was a black BMW I didn't recognize. I parked on the street instead of pulling into our garage. Something felt wrong. The house was too quiet, yet I could see lights on upstairs. I used my key to enter quietly through the back door, my work boots making soft squeaks on the kitchen tiles I knew so well. That's when I heard it, muffled voices coming from our bedroom upstairs. My heart started pounding like a jackhammer against my chest. I crept up the carpeted stairs, each step feeling like it took an eternity. The voices became clearer as I approached our bedroom door, which was slightly ajar. Amelia's laugh drifted through the crack. Not her usual laugh, but something more intimate, more sultry. Then I heard a man's voice, deep and smooth, saying something about next weekend in Miami, and the Ritz-Carlton oceanfront suite. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My hands started shaking, and for a moment I considered bursting through that door and confronting them both. But something stopped me. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was self-preservation, or maybe it was the mechanic in me that wanted to diagnose the full problem before attempting a repair. Instead, I backed away slowly and left the house as quietly as I'd entered. I drove to Murphy's Bar 3 blocks away and sat there nursing a beer, trying to process what I'd just discovered. The bartender, an old Irish guy named Seamus, must have seen something in my face because he kept refilling my glass without being asked. After 2 hours and 3 beers, I drove back home. The BMW was gone, and Amelia was in the kitchen making dinner as if nothing had happened. She greeted me with her usual peck on the cheek and asked about my day. I mumbled something about the broken lift and went upstairs to shower, needing time to think. That night at dinner, I studied my wife's face as she talked about her day at the office. She seemed different somehow, more animated, more glowing. She mentioned working late on a complex corporate restructuring case, and how she might need to travel to Miami next weekend for client meetings. I nodded and made appropriate responses, but inside I was formulating a plan. I'd always been good at solving mechanical problems by taking things apart piece by piece, and this situation would be no different. The next morning, while Amelia was at her Saturday yoga class, I began my investigation. I started with her laptop, but it was password protected. However, I remembered she often used our anniversary date with variations, and after several attempts I got in. What I found in her email history made my blood run cold. Months of correspondence with someone identified only as N, flirtatious messages, romantic plans, and most disturbing of all, discussions about our future together, and the plan we discussed. But it was a draft email that never got sent that really caught my attention. Noah, darling, I've confirmed the account details. The transfer will happen in stages over the next month as we discussed. Once the final amount is moved, we can disappear to Costa Rica as planned. Liam will never suspect anything until it's too late. Noah. I racked my brain trying to remember where I'd heard that name. Then it hit me, Noah Wilson, a partner at Blackstone Legal Group, where Amelia had been doing some freelance consulting work for the past 6 months. I'd met him once at their company Christmas party. Tall, silver-haired, expensive suit, wedding ring, talked about his 2 kids in private school. I spent the rest of that Saturday in a daze. Amelia came home from yoga and spent the afternoon doing laundry and cleaning, normal Saturday activities that now felt surreal. I kept waiting for her to slip up, to give some sign that she was living a double life, but she was perfect in her deception. Sunday morning brought a breakthrough. While Amelia was in the shower, her phone buzzed with a text message. The preview showed, Noah, can't wait for tonight. Same place, 8 p.m. Bring the documents we discussed. That evening I followed her. I told her I was meeting some guys from work to watch the game at Riley's Sports Bar, and she said she was having dinner with her college roommate Jennifer, who was visiting from Milwaukee. Instead, I followed her silver Honda to the Fairmont Hotel downtown. I watched from the lobby bar as she met Noah Wilson in the hotel restaurant. They weren't behaving like casual business associates. Their body language screamed affair. But what really caught my attention was the manila envelope Noah slid across the table to her, and the way she quickly tucked it into her purse. Over the next 2 weeks I became a man obsessed. I bought a small digital camera with a telephoto lens and began documenting their meetings. I installed tracking software on our shared laptop and discovered they met twice a week. Mondays at the Fairmont and Fridays at a small bed and breakfast in nearby Elmhurst. But the real revelation came when I decided to follow the money trail. I discovered that Amelia had opened a secret bank account at a different bank across town. Using some creative investigating, and a buddy from high school named Felix who worked in banking, I learned that significant amounts of money had been flowing into this account from multiple sources. The picture that emerged was staggering. Noah wasn't just cheating on his wife with mine, they were embezzling money from his law firm. As a partner, he had access to client escrow accounts and was systematically transferring small amounts into accounts Amelia had set up. Her accounting skills were helping him hide the paper trail. I realized I was dealing with something much bigger than a simple affair. These two weren't just betraying their spouses. They were stealing potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars and planning to flee the country. That's when I decided that a simple divorce wouldn't be enough. They had planned to destroy my life and steal my future. It was time to turn their own plan against them. First, I needed more evidence. I convinced a guy named Danny who did security installations to help me set up some discreet cameras in my own house. I told him I suspected someone was breaking in while we were at work. The cameras were tiny and virtually invisible when properly placed. Within a week, I had recorded several of their intimate meetings in my own bedroom, meetings where they discussed their escape plan in detail. They planned to make one final large transfer of funds in 3 weeks, then disappear to Costa Rica where they'd already purchased property under assumed names. But Noah had a problem I don't think Amelia knew about. Through some careful research, I discovered he was already under investigation by his firm's other partners. Someone had noticed discrepancies in the client accounts, and an internal audit was scheduled for the end of the month. This gave me an idea for the perfect revenge. I made copies of all the evidence I'd gathered, photographs, recordings, financial records, email correspondence. Then I began to execute my plan. Step 1. I anonymously sent copies of Noah's financial crimes to Grace Wilson, his wife. I included photos of him with Amelia and details about their planned escape to Costa Rica. I packaged it all in a manila envelope and had it delivered to her office at the Children's Hospital where she worked as a pediatric nurse. Step 2. I sent similar evidence to the senior partners at Blackstone Legal Group, but I timed it to arrive the day before their internal audit was scheduled to begin. Step 3. I began quietly liquidating our joint assets. I sold some stocks we owned, canceled upcoming vacation reservations, and transferred money from our joint savings account to a personal account I'd opened at a different bank. Since I was listed as a co-owner on everything, these transactions were perfectly legal. But the masterpiece of my plan was step 4. I discovered that Amelia and Noah planned to make their escape on Friday, November 15th. She had told me she was going to a weekend accounting conference in Milwaukee. In reality, they were flying from Chicago to Miami, then catching a connection to San Jose, Costa Rica. 2 days before their planned departure, I put my plan into motion. I called in sick to work that Wednesday, something I rarely did, which made it believable. Instead of going to Premier Auto, I drove to Amelia's office building and waited in the parking garage. When she left for lunch, I followed her to meet Noah at their usual restaurant. While they were inside, I slipped a small GPS tracking device under Noah's BMW. Then I drove to Noah's law firm and planted a similar device on his car. I wanted to track their movements over the next 48 hours. That evening at home, Amelia seemed nervous and distracted. She kept checking her phone and made several trips upstairs to organize her conference materials. Through my hidden cameras, I watched her packing expensive clothes and jewelry, definitely not conference attire. Thursday night, she was practically vibrating with nervous energy. She claimed to have a headache and went to bed early. I pretended to fall asleep beside her, but I was actually monitoring the tracking devices on my phone. Both cars remained stationary all night. Friday morning arrived, D-Day. Amelia kissed me goodbye with what seemed like extra tenderness and reminded me she'd be back Sunday evening. She said she loved me, and for just a moment, I almost felt bad about what I was about to do. After she left, I called work and told them I needed to take a personal day to handle some family business. Then I began the final phase of my plan. I drove to O'Hare Airport and positioned myself in the observation area where I could watch the security checkpoints. Using the flight information I'd gathered from their emails, I knew they were taking a 2:30 p.m. flight to Miami. At 12:45, I spotted them in the check-in line. Amelia was wearing a beautiful red dress I'd never seen before, and Noah was in an expensive-looking casual outfit. They looked like a couple heading off on a romantic vacation, which, in a twisted way, they were. I waited until they cleared security and reached their gate. Then I made 3 phone calls that would change everything. The first call was to Grace Wilson. Mrs. Wilson, this is someone who cares about justice. Your husband and his mistress are about to board Flight 447 to Miami with stolen money from his law firm. They plan to escape to Costa Rica. You have about 90 minutes to stop them. The second call was to Marcus Blackstone, the senior partner at Noah's firm. Mr. Blackstone, this is a concerned citizen. Noah Wilson is at O'Hare Airport right now, about to flee the country with money he's embezzled from your client accounts. Flight 447, Gate B12. You have 90 minutes. The third call was to the Chicago Police Fraud Division. I provided them with copies of all the evidence I'd gathered and informed them about the attempted flight. Then I settled in to watch the show. At 1:45 p.m., I saw Grace Wilson arrive at the airport. She must have broken every speed limit getting there. She was accompanied by 2 police officers and what looked like airport security. At 2 p.m., Marcus Blackstone arrived with 2 other men in expensive suits and another police officer. At 2:15 p.m., just as passengers were beginning to board, I watched through the terminal windows as Noah and Amelia were approached by the combined group of law enforcement and wronged parties. The scene that unfolded was better than any movie. Noah immediately tried to run but was tackled by airport security. Amelia just stood there in shock as Grace Wilson confronted her, screaming about how she destroyed a family and stolen money meant for children's medical care. The police arrested both of them right there at the gate. As they were led away in handcuffs, I saw Amelia looking around frantically, probably wondering how their perfect plan had fallen apart so spectacularly. I drove home feeling more satisfied than I had in months. But my work wasn't done yet. Over the weekend, while Amelia sat in Cook County Jail unable to make bail, I completed the dismantling of our life together. I changed all the passwords on our accounts, canceled her credit cards, and began the process of filing for divorce on grounds of fraud and adultery. I also discovered just how deep their betrayal went. By hacking into Amelia's secret email account, she'd used the same password for everything. I found evidence that they'd been planning this for almost a year. She had been slowly manipulating our finances, moving small amounts into accounts I didn't know about, all while playing the loving wife at home. The most painful discovery was a message she'd sent to Noah just 2 weeks earlier. I can't wait to leave this boring life behind. Liam is such a simple man, he'll never figure out what we're doing. By the time he realizes I'm gone, we'll be sipping margaritas on our private beach in Costa Rica. Simple man. Those words stung more than I expected, but they also hardened my resolve. Monday morning brought more satisfaction. The local news picked up the story, local lawyer and accountant arrested in embezzlement scheme. The report detailed how Noah Wilson and Amelia Collins had stolen over $400,000 from client accounts and were attempting to flee the country when they were arrested at O'Hare Airport. My phone started ringing around 10 a.m. First, it was Amelia's sister Rachel, asking what was happening and if I could help with bail money. I told her I was filing for divorce and that Amelia was on her own. Then Amelia's mother called, crying and begging me to help her daughter. I listened politely, then explained that her daughter had been cheating on me and stealing money for months. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me. But the call I was waiting for came Tuesday afternoon. It was Amelia calling from jail. Liam, thank God you answered. This is all a terrible mistake. I can explain everything. Really? I said calmly. Explain how you've been having an affair with Noah Wilson for months while planning to steal money and flee to Costa Rica? Silence. Explain how you called me a simple man who would never figure out what you were doing? More silence. Then, how do you know all this? You're right about one thing, Amelia. I am a simple man. Simple enough to trust my wife. Simple enough to believe in our marriage vows. But not simple enough to let you destroy my life without consequences. Liam, please, I need your help. The bail is set at $100,000. If you could just... I hung up. She called back immediately. I let it go to voicemail. She called 6 more times that day. I deleted each message without listening to it. Wednesday brought another piece of good news. Felix, my banking contact, informed me that he'd been able to freeze the accounts where Amelia had hidden the stolen money. Apparently, when the police arrested her, they'd also gotten warrants for all her financial records. That afternoon, I received a visit from Marcus Blackstone and another partner from Noah's firm. They wanted to thank me for exposing the embezzlement and ask if I'd be willing to testify in their civil case against Noah and Amelia. Absolutely, I told them. But I want something in return. They looked surprised. I want to make sure Amelia serves actual jail time for this. She destroyed our marriage and was planning to steal my future along with your money. I want her to face the full consequences of her actions. They assured me that they would be pushing for the maximum prosecution. Over the next 2 weeks, more details emerged. Noah had been skimming from client accounts for over 2 years, not just the few months I'd initially discovered. The total amount stolen was closer to $750,000. He'd also been having affairs with at least 2 other women before Amelia, though she seemed to be the first one he'd actually planned to run away with. Grace Wilson filed for divorce and was awarded full custody of their 2 children plus most of their assets. Noah's legal career was obviously over, and he was facing 5 to 10 years in federal prison. But Amelia's situation was even worse. As an accountant, she'd knowingly participated in financial fraud, which carried heavier penalties. Her lawyer, a public defender since all her assets were frozen, told her she was looking at 7 to 12 years. 3 weeks after her arrest, she was released on bail that her parents had somehow managed to scrape together. She came home to find the locks changed and divorce papers taped to the front door. She called me from our front porch. "Liam, please, we need to talk. I know I made terrible mistakes, but we can work through this. I love you. I never stopped loving you. Where are you staying?" I asked. I don't have anywhere to go. My parents won't take me back, and Rachel says her husband won't allow it. All our accounts are frozen. I have nothing. For a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You should have thought about that before you decided I was too simple to matter. I never meant. Goodbye, Amelia. I hung up and turned off my phone. Through the window, I watched her sit on our front steps for 2 hours, crying. Eventually, a taxi came and took her away. I later learned she was staying at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. The divorce proceedings were swift. With all the evidence of adultery and financial fraud, Amelia's lawyer advised her not to contest anything. She signed away her rights to our house, our savings, and even her car, which I'd been making payments on anyway. In February, both she and Noah were sentenced. He got 8 years in federal prison. She got 10, plus restitution that would keep her financially devastated for the rest of her life. I attended both sentencing hearings. At Noah's hearing, his wife Grace was there with their children. The kids looked confused and sad, and I felt genuinely sorry for them. They were the real innocent victims in all this. At Amelia's hearing, only her mother was present. When the judge read the sentence, Amelia turned around and looked at me with tears streaming down her face. I stared back with no expression at all. After the hearing, her mother approached me in the courthouse hallway. "How can you be so cold?" she asked. "She made mistakes, but she was your wife. She loved you." "No," I replied. "She loved the idea of having a secure home base while she planned her escape with stolen money. If she'd loved me, she would never have done what she did." The woman looked at me like I was some kind of monster, but I didn't care. Amelia had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. 6 months later, I sold our house in Oak Park and bought a smaller place in a different neighborhood. I also left Premier Auto and opened my own garage, Collins Automotive. The irony of keeping her last name for my business wasn't lost on me, but I'd built a reputation under that name, and it seemed fitting that her betrayal would now advertise my success every day. Business was good. Word had gotten around about what happened, and somehow that made people trust me more. I think they figured that a man who'd been so thoroughly betrayed and handled it without violence or public outbursts was someone they could depend on. A year after the divorce was finalized, I received a letter from Amelia in prison. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. "Dear Liam," it began. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to tell you some things. First, I'm truly sorry for what I did to you and to us. I know that probably sounds hollow now, but it's true. I got caught up in a fantasy and lost sight of what was real and good in my life. Noah convinced me that we were meant to be together, that you and I had grown apart. He made me believe that taking the money was justified because we deserved a better life. I can see now how wrong that was, how selfish and cruel. I also want you to know that I never stopped loving you, even when I was planning to leave. I know that doesn't make sense, and I know it doesn't excuse anything, but it's true. The person I became during those months wasn't really me. I'm not asking for forgiveness, and I'm not asking you to write back. I just wanted you to know that I realize what I lost when I lost you. You were the best man I've ever known, and I threw it all away for a lie. I hope you're happy now. I hope you found someone who deserves you and treats you the way I should have. You deserve all the good things life can offer. With love and regret, Amelia." I read the letter twice, then put it in my desk drawer. I didn't reply. 2 years later, I met Olivia Martinez at a coffee shop near my garage. She was an elementary school teacher whose car had broken down, and she'd walked 3 blocks to find a mechanic. I helped her get her car towed and gave her a fair estimate for the repairs. She was beautiful, with dark hair and kind eyes, but what attracted me most was her directness. When I told her the repair would take 2 days, she asked if I was being honest or just trying to make more money. I laughed and showed her exactly what was wrong with her transmission. We started dating slowly. I was cautious about trusting again, and she seemed to understand that. She never pressured me to talk about my divorce, but when I finally told her the whole story, she listened without judgment. "She must have been crazy to give up a man like you," was all she said. "We've been together for 3 years now, and last month I asked her to marry me. She said yes, but she wants to wait another year. I want to be absolutely sure we're ready," she said. "Marriage should be forever." I agreed completely. As for Amelia, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was released early for good behavior after serving 7 years. She tried to contact me through Rachel, asking if we could meet for coffee to find closure. I sent back a message through Rachel. I found my closure the day I realized I was better off without her. Last I heard, she was living in a small apartment in Milwaukee, working as a bookkeeper for a pet supply store. She'll be paying restitution for the rest of her life, and she'll never be able to work in accounting or finance again due to her fraud conviction. Sometimes I think about the letter she sent from prison, about her claim that she never stopped loving me. Maybe that was true in some twisted way, but it doesn't matter. Love without loyalty, without honesty, without commitment, that's not love at all. That's just selfishness wearing a pretty mask. The woman I thought I married, the woman I grieved for when I discovered her betrayal, she never really existed. The real Amelia was someone who could lie to my face for months while planning to destroy my life for money and a fantasy romance. I don't hate her anymore. Hate requires too much energy, and I'd rather spend that energy on building something positive. But I don't forgive her either. Some betrayals are too complete, too calculated to ever be truly forgiven. My new life with Olivia is built on a foundation of truth and mutual respect. We discuss our finances together, make decisions together, and when we disagree about something, we talk it through instead of hiding our feelings or making secret plans. It's amazing how good a relationship can be when both people are actually committed to making it work. Every morning when I arrive at Collins Automotive, I see the name on the sign and remember how far I've come. What Amelia meant as the ultimate betrayal, destroying my simple, trusting nature, actually became the catalyst for me to build a better life. I'm no longer the simple man she thought she could easily deceive. I'm stronger, wiser, and more successful than I ever was during our marriage. And the best part is, I accomplished all of this not through violence or cruelty, but by being smarter than the people who tried to destroy me. In the end, I got the last laugh. And it was worth the wait. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.